Hey guys, Dave Keller with Market Misbehavior. I'm here in New York City doing some media interviews and client meetings this week, and getting ready to head home shortly. As I often do in New York, I have these grand ideas to walk around on the street and do one of those cool videos where you're walking down, you see the city in the background. But I'm such a bad multitasker that I'm pretty sure if I did that, I would walk into a building or other people or drop my phone down a subway grate or something like that. So as I usually end up doing, I shoot it in the hotel room. So sorry for the background. It's pretty basic New York hotel background. But again, I'm such a bad multitasker that I choose not to walk down the street. Although it would give you maybe a rich visual experience. But there's a lesson there actually for investing, right? I am a very bad multitasker, and I recognize that. And again, very broadly, generally speaking, men in general tend to be worse at multitasking than women. And some of you may have personal experience knowing this. I know with my wife and I, we certainly find that if I'm focusing on one thing, I need to be very closely focused on that, or I start messing it up, right? So cooking, cleaning, writing, watching a movie, like I am very one focused, very attentive to what I'm doing. My wife is able to do a bunch of things and do something and pay attention to the kids and think about an appointment and all of that. So how do we relate that to what we're doing as investors or as traders? Well, we try to multitask way too often, right? You are trying to think about your process. You are also paying attention to your current portfolio. You have the financial media over here, and you're listening to what's moving. You're talking to a friend on the phone, and at the same time, you're monitoring all those things. And the moment you start doing more than one or two tasks, you have a deficit of attention to at least one of those. So when we talk about multitasking, what we're actually doing is just task switching, right? So instead of paying equal attention to a bunch of different things, we're actually not able to pay very good attention to anything. We're basically doing everything pretty poorly instead of trying to do everything very well. So the lesson there is try to avoid multitasking. And a couple tricks to keep in mind. Number one is have an intention with how you're using your time, right? So instead of just having a bunch of things up, and it's very easy now with all the computing power and a bunch of screens you can have to have a ton of information up at once. You really don't need it. And I would argue for most people, unless you are actively trading a number of different markets very short term, you really don't need to have that. It's just going to add a lot of noise. So I would focus on having much more of an intention to your process, right? I'm going to look at this chart or look at this report or read this article, and I'm going to focus on that and really think about it. The second thing you can do is start to take notes on what you're doing, right? So if you are listening to financial media, take a moment to write down in a journal, write down on a piece of paper, here's what I just heard and here's what it means. And you don't have to write it out long form, but just, jot down some ideas. So at least it captures some of the stuff. Otherwise, you're just kind of shotgun style, throwing attention all around and not actually doing anything meaningful for it. And then the third thing is just to turn a lot of things off, right? So have an intention, keep some brief notes, but most importantly, really think about how you schedule your day with time that's focused on a certain task. So, as much as we feel like we need to spend the entire day focused on a little of everything, take this next 10 minutes or this next 30 minutes or whatever and have a time where you're actually focusing on a specific task and really focus on doing that well. A lot of the mindfulness techniques that I work with clients on are based on that, focused attention, right? Actually allowing your brain to focus on one thing and recognize that there are other thoughts, but to minimize the importance of those other distractive thoughts and really focus on what you're doing. Have an awareness of the now, and I think as investors or as traders, that's going to serve us much better than trying to multitask. If this sort of thinking about your process and some of the behavioral biases and decision-making ways you can improve what you're doing, if that's of interest to you, I hope you'll check out my blog, marketmisbehavior.com. Thanks so much.